Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven, and I'm here with my very special guest, Renee Coltson. And you were discussing Sinatra.
I was, and actually while you were on break, I was doing frequency work on myself because self-healing is a necessary thing as well.
Nice.
And so I'm alive again.
All right.
Pumping light. So Sinatra goes into full-blown register, and the cameraman is all focused on that. And I said, yes, that's all very interesting, isn't it? But look at the horse behind Sinatra, Goldie. I was not doing anything with Goldie. Again, I'm just standing there interacting with the frequencies, producing this light. Sinatra entrains, and now what happens? Sinatra entrains into his own session. He's producing this light. The field effect is expanding. The horse behind him, Goldie, goes into her own session. Her eyes are registering, and I go, okay, now just take your camera and span it through the paddock here, and every horse was in their session. Full circle. He just turned around, the little burro behind him, the horse over by the water trough. They're all in session because of this field effect. And I'm going to tell you something. This work that I'm involved with, this work that we are sharing with the world, can shift. It is shifting this planet. Remember I talked about the Premarin mirrors? Mm-hmm. Well, they reside at Dream Chaser, where I was that day, and I did another fundraiser there. And she had a lot of activity going on at the ranch that day. She had a kid's birthday party. She was training new volunteers, and I was doing a fundraiser. And how I raise funds for sanctuaries, by the way, is we invite people in from the community and who are supporters and donors of that sanctuary to hear about this work and how it benefits animals, and they make a contribution to the sanctuary. So we get a pretty good turnout. Mm-hmm. So she didn't know where to put me, so she goes, well, I'm going to put her down in the breezeway with her group of people and by the Premarin mares. And then I said, oh, and by the way, make sure I have Goldie and Sinatra. Because, of course, again, of course, we're raising funds. We need good demos. You know what? Just because somebody doesn't show these, what we call registers, which is an involuntary muscle group movement, doesn't mean there's not an effect. It just means they're not showing it, visibly with the muscle group movements. But anyway, well, the Premarin mares, this is Susan observed this. She sits down on a bale of hay at the end, and she's watching it. And later she goes, that was unbelievable. She goes, first of all, you weren't even doing anything yet. You were talking. And she goes, every one of those mares had come to the forefront. Normally they're back in the corner. They want, get me away from these people, but they came up there, were hanging their heads over the rails of the corral, and they were part of my audience. And I said, well, Susan, we don't have to do anything. We're there. It's conditioned space. In fact, there's research teams that come into our seminars, and they'll show up a few days before we get there with the seminar. And they get a baseline in the room, because if they're going to measure the effect of these frequencies on the crowd and in the space, they need to get a baseline of what is the readout in that room before we get there. So what they've noticed is before we get there, things start changing. So they set up their equipment, they get the baseline, and things start amping up. And then when we're conducting the seminars, of course, there's exercises that are going on to feel the frequencies, which, I can probably do with your audience over the air, no problem. Cool. And they find that it becomes conditioned space, and there is this field effect. Well, it's no different when I go into a barn. I've talked to several of the research teams going, well, I think that we really need to measure animals, so we can get a readout on the changes in them. And they all said, well, we wouldn't really know how to do that. And I said, well, that's really easy. Really. I do a lot of dairy farms in Europe. I'll have workshops at dairy farms, and I'll say, you just have to go to a farm we haven't been to and extract some milk from a cow and measure the biophoton activity. What's normal? What's coming out of the cow? Normal. And then we interact with the cow, and then you get some more milk. And the guy, Konstantin Krakov's guy out of St. Petersburg, Russia, said, wow, that would be some yummy cheese. So, we do have a sense of humor about it, too.
Mm-hmm. No kidding. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it does alter everything. That's fascinating. It's incredible.
So your hands are free, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we did this last time, did we?
I don't think so. I think you might have, maybe off air. I don't know on air.
I think your dog was picking up on it.
Well, I actually sent you a little message there because as soon as I, contacted you, he comes over. So he knows.
There you go.
Yep.
They're very sensitive, those animals.
Oh, yeah.
And there's such love. I have my little dog with me, and back to that love frequency. I mean, he travels with me, and everywhere he goes, he makes people smile. I was walking through this place yesterday, and this lady has this big smile on her face, and he's like my wrist bracelet. Sometimes I just forget. I mean, he's part of me, right? I don't think about my parts all the time, but he's with me, and I'm going, isn't that nice? This woman's giving me a big smile. I went, oh, it's the dog.
Oh, yeah.
But Teddy is this really expression of absolute love, and wherever he goes, I think he brings that to people. Mm-hmm. And animals can do that. And animals do that. All the time, So what I want you to do, Solaris, and anyone who's listening, is we do work with the hands. Now, this isn't about the hands, but the reason we first bring it into the hands is because your brain connection to your hands, that's where you feel, right? So we're going to start with the hands. So and you're probably already feeling it anyway, because I know how sensitive you are.
You're good.
No, it's not me. So, but for your audience, people who are listening, just take your hands. We are not building an energy ball, just so you know. It's just a brain connection to the hands. Just take your hands and put them about 6 or 8 inches apart, one over the top. Doesn't matter which one. And just do small circles, small, really slow, because you can feel more that way. Just go around about the size of a CD, as if there's a clock. These exercises are, by the way, in Eric's book, The Reconnection, Heal Yourself, chapter 19. So just take it go around the clock and stop at the numbers. It doesn't matter which hand, it doesn't matter which direction. But just imagine that it's the face of a clock. Can you feel it?
Oh, yeah.
And feel each number and kind of stop and experience 6 o'clock and 3 o'clock and 1 o'clock and see if they feel any differences. Now, what we're going to do is you're feeling the connection, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to take whatever hand you have on top and you're just going to draw it to the side. So now it's not over your palm. But I want you to keep moving it. This is where I want to take you to the place where you recognize that it's not because you have one hand over the other. All right? You still feeling it?
Mm-hmm.
And as you move the hand that you have palm down around in a circle, can you feel that motion in your other hand?
Hell yes.
Isn't that weird?
That's great. Yeah.
And now take the hand that you have palm down and just pull it up. Do a little circle, pull it up, so you're creating more distance between the top and the bottom hand, more space.
Mm-hmm.
And now just turn your palms so they're interfacing each other, just for fun. And I'm going to call it fine tuning, and move the other one and see if it changes things. And draw out. And now tune into other parts of your body and see if you have any awareness of anything else. And it can be anything. It can be your heart. It can be, you might start swallowing harder. You can feel temperature changes. People experience these. We have a pattern recognition of things that people experience, but there's a multitude of possibilities on what people might feel. And by the way, not everybody feels it. Most people will feel something. And if you close your eyes, close your eyes for a second, because you're going to be more aware if there's any movement in your eyeballs, if they're closed. We actually, when we're doing this work, we keep our eyes open. We don't close them. Feel anything in your eyes?
Interesting. Not really. I feel a lot of electricity, though, but I'm very electric anyway.
Yes, you are.
That's interesting. So let me ask you something. What's the difference between this technique and something like a chi ball, like for martial arts?
Well, that's what I mean. We're not building a ball.
No,
because, okay.
That's what it reminds me of.
Because you're familiar with that, mm-hmm. And because I started you with your palm over palm, right. So it seems like we're building a chi ball. So now let me take you another step and say, okay, let's not go there.
Okay.
just allow your hands to just drop down, palms forward at your side. Are you sitting in a chair?
No, I'm sitting Indian style right now.
Okay. Well, then put your palms up to the sky.
Okay.
And we're not going to have them palm over palm. You're just going to feel the frequencies. Just put your attention and keep your fingers apart, by the way. Are they apart? Mm-hmm. Don't paste them together. Okay, good.
Try this at home, everyone.
Yes, everybody, just tune in and try this. Now, I'm sitting in a chair because I knew if I reclined on the chair in the corner on my bed, I would not be with you the whole time. So I'm sitting in a chair. So I can literally just allow my hands, my arms to fall loosely at my sides. And it's what we call going into suspension. This is how we do stealth healing, by the way, at the grocery store. You know, I don't have to move my hands. We don't have to move anything.
Nice.
So just allow.
Can I take you shopping?
I have great cosmic shopping guides.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. So just allow them to just do nothing, but tune in to your hands and see if you feel like a pulse or buzzing.
Definitely pulse. Yeah.
And now just move one in a circle and see what you feel happening in the other hand and try the other one. You feel a response over there, but you're not, your palms are not interacting, right?
Right. Yep.
So that's not a chi ball.
Interesting.
That is not a chi ball. That is interacting with these new frequencies of healing consciously because they're there anyway. And so once you're tuned in, I went over to a friend of mine's house 2 weeks ago. And she said that her daughter, so I am a kids facilitator, teaching them how, by the way, in two hours, we can completely get children to do this work, no questions asked. I mean, in fact, this little girl was amazing. So her mother said she was really having a hard time focus. She's not a really focused child. She's very gifted. She's one of those really gifted children. I think she just can't focus on one thing because there's so much going on right in her head. So I said, okay, Allison, just, I took her through these exercises and I said, now just close your eyes for a moment. And she goes, oh, it feels so peaceful. And her mother goes, do you think that we won't have to give her because she has to take medication for her focus, right? She goes, do you think that we'll be able to get her to a place where she doesn't need medication? I said, well, I don't really know, but I can tell you that it's completely possible. Well, the child has really, and the other reason I wanted Allison to have these is because she loves animals. And her dog, Gabby, another camping trip I did about 3 or 4 weeks ago with her mom and her dog, Gabby. Gabby is afraid of lightning. So Wendy and I were out sitting under the stars and it was lightning and some thunder, and the dog started becoming disturbed and cowling. And I said, well, let me just we'll work with Gabby. Gabby now it thundered and lightning all night. They went to bed. They went into their tent. She said Gabby slept completely sound that night. Nice. So we wanted to give this to Allison, the child of the household, and I invited them out. I said, well, Wendy, as long as I'm here, you might as well sit down and play too. And Wendy's going, that is just the weirdest thing. I can't believe. She goes, can I charge the field in my office? I said, read Eric's book. Make sure you read the book, get to chapter 19, and it's going to take you through these really easy exercises to just bring your awareness. That's all you need is you bring your awareness. Now, that doesn't make you a practitioner. It does make you able to interact with the frequencies. Going to the full-on seminar is going to give you the ability to really understand the principles of this work, which is important because, I get phone calls from people who read the book. And they'll go, well, my dog had, for instance, some dental problems and needed surgery. They couldn't afford it, so they did read the book, and they worked with the dog, and the dog didn't need the surgery. And did I think it was possible that the dog had a healing? I said, well, you just told me it is possible because it happened. But then she goes, but then I worked on my husband, and nothing happened. And I said, you know what? Because you don't understand. the philosophy of the work now. You have expectations. So when you worked on your dog, you didn't know what you were doing. You were completely innocent and devoid of attachment. Mm-hmm. Now you had this miracle and you're working with your husband. Maybe, and it could very well be that she was directing, she was focused on how her husband should have a healing because she had success in that first healing with, no experience. Exactly. And going to the seminar really puts you in a place of you really need to understand the philosophy of this work. And Eric does cover the philosophy of this work pretty fully in that first book. Mm-hmm. The second book, called Solomon Speaks, came out about 1.5 years ago. And that book completely set me free because that delivers a higher perspective, a bigger picture of this work and how what we are doing at this time on the planet is really, we have come to a place in this plane of existence that we can't go any further mm-hmm. without a change.
I agree.
We're like rats spinning on a wheel. Mm-hmm. And so with everything that's happening, this is our opportunity. Everything that's happening on this planet is our opportunity to really look at things and step into a new potential of a new way of life. Mm-hmm. And it's got to happen. I do believe it's going to happen. I do believe also, I sent you that piece of material, material about balance is progress. It is inevitable, but how it comes about, we do have a part to play in that. The ultimate result will be harmony, but how are we going to get there is the question.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah. And to what degree do people or planets or this planet or the animals suffer?
Right. And, animals are treated like commodities as well. I mean, there's a lot of ownership consciousness with animals. That's got to stop.
I agree.
They're not commodities. They're not to be owned. There should not be, nothing should be owned. We can't really own anything. We can own our own state of being. We can own the perfection of who we are and express that. We can own our mastery, but we cannot own things. Mm-hmm. Or people or pets. In fact, the pet thing kind of bothers me.
The title.
Yeah, the title.
Yeah, they call them guardians where I live here in Colorado.
I love that.
Yeah, that's what we are. Mm-hmm.
I love that. Mm-hmm. And I think Teddy's my guardian.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. I stood be. I don't know what he is. Mm-hmm. He's a cute dog, and somebody left this wonderful, wonderful being tied to a post to die in the summer in Phoenix, Arizona, and he needed surgeries and. He had hot spots, he had ticks, and he was a mess. He doesn't even look like the same dog. He is such a cool dog. He actually is the spokesman for the animal kingdom for reconnective animals. Oh, nice. He's on stage. When I go to seminars domestic, he gets introduced on Friday night as the canine representative for the animal kingdom.
Oh, that's great.
And he's a really good representative, really good. But I had to say something I discovered about my own horses. Recently, I said my own. I mean, they're my buddies. They're my boys, I wasn't feeling really well because I had, it was a rough time of camping on trail rides and stuff. And anyway, I came back and I was grazing. And I wasn't grazing. They were. But I was holding each horse and one horse in each hand. And all of a sudden I got really warm. And I went, it's not that hot out. It was after dark. And it was kind of cool. I mean, it was a summer night still in Phoenix, but it was not miserable. Mm-hmm. And I went, why am I so hot? And I started to sweat. I'm going, I'm between my horses, but God, they're generating a lot of heat. So I moved out and moved away from the heat. I went, oh my God, they're healers. Mm. And I needed it. And I said, thank you.
Well, that's great.
Said, thank you very much. So awesome. Animals are healers too.
Yeah, I believe that.
But they don't have to stand there and think I'm going to help her out. No, they're just eating grass, just being who they are.
Yeah, they don't have the programming that humans do.
That's right. And we also have to recognize that we are living in a co-evolutionary environment. Mm-hmm. It's an interdependent place.
Exactly. And what about plants and other things like trees? They do the same thing, I suspect.
I suspect you're correct there. Living beings as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it's wonderful.
you know, there are 3 podcasts that I just love on the social media page that Paul put up, our friend Paul,
Mm-hmm.
on the Partnership in Planetary Healing website, piphealing.org. You know Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
Giannotti know too, right? Well, he loves the work that I do with animals. I've never really had the pleasure of meeting him personally, but we've talked on the phone. And he did 3 podcasts about the evolution of the kingdoms. And I just want to recommend that people listen to that, because his delivery of information is basically to examine the relationship that we all share with others on this planet. And that includes all life, since you brought it up, plants, minerals, and animals, people, and how we really have to work towards achieving a positive influence wherever we go. And that we will be a more complete person. We will grow as a soul. When you change your beliefs or limitations of your beliefs about other life here on earth, and you appreciate their eternal soul and that everything has continuous growth.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of the message through those 3 podcasts, and they're 15 minutes or so a piece. And you know what? I think they're really of value to listen to. So I'm going to recommend people go there. And it's about implementing the partnership consciousness as well.
Yeah, it's a great site. It's a beautiful website.
Thank you. It needs, I have so much on my plate. I need that. Used to be all focused on animal stuff and conditions and situations globally, that how we can shift those. But then last year, we shifted it to talk about universal principles mostly, because I felt last year went, you know what, people really need to look at this. It's a book right there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's time to, grow that site and shift that site a little bit too.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And you are traveling right now, right? Or no?
I'm in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
I'm in a little town called Cambridge outside of Madison.
Nice.
Yeah. So I have a home base here farm. It's not my farm, but it's a practitioner's farm called Paradise Farm in Deerfield. And she offers me her farm to teach the animal workshop in the area. And then for the people part, I was doing the certification program for practitioners at the Sheraton Madison. Nice. And I think awesome. It was less than a month ago, I was in Chicago. I kind of trimmed down my international travel this year, but I am gearing up for Australia. That's the one on my plate right now, taking registrations. I have 2 presentations. One, we were invited into a veterinarian clinic. So people are starting to open up. There was a time when there was no way a veterinarian was going to let us in their clinic to talk about his work. Mm-hmm. But it's happening now.
That's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. Yeah, and also if people want to track these seminars, can they do that on your website or Eric's, or how does that work?
Oh, I recommend they go right to the source. Go to thereconnection.com and navigate through the site to, you can put in different cities, dates. It's an evolved site. I mean, it evolved recently. So I'm still getting to know the site. But yes, the seminar schedule is on there. I can tell you have an international audience, right? Mm-hmm. Well, Eric is all over the place. Right now, he's in London.
Nice.
With the team. I'm not there. Domestically, there's one coming up in Vancouver, the middle of October, Vancouver, Canada. And then there's one in San Diego, California in November. Australia is in November. He's in South America. He's in North America. I mean, you have to look at the website. He's busy. He's 45 weekends a year. He's somewhere on the planet teaching Excellent. The foundational work of reconnective healing. And it's life-changing. And if you can't get to a seminar, I do recommend read the book. And you know what? YouTube is loaded with presentations with Eric, and I've got some podcasts out there and some YouTube videos. And
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wonderful work you're doing, especially in times like these. It's so desperately needed. So I so appreciate it. Looks like you have a quick question here from Steve over here, Steve Travesty. But what is your guest view on the stewards of the earth? responsibility of man, such as the Bible and other spiritual texts? Any thoughts on that?
I do. As a matter of fact, I can't remember which book of Kings it is. I think it's Kings 2. There's a statement that says, what man does to the beasts of the earth happens to them. Mm-hmm. And another thing, which I would say is biblically oriented, I was driving down the street one day, and I had to pull over and write it down because it came through that quickly, and it basically is just poetry. But it was profound, I think profound poetry. The earth is our dominion. We are the caretakers of this place. The planet, plants, animals, and all. Yes, we the human race. Look what we've done. What we've done is a disgrace. Now, that was in the 80s, and people go, oh my gosh, Renee, that's just so judgmental. But you know what? It's a fact.
Mm-hmm. It's an observation.
Yeah. Yes. And as far as being stewards, I think the word dominion, people need to look at that. Having dominion does not mean control. Mm-hmm. It means caretaking.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Mm-hmm. Is that what he means?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. You can text me again if
As a matter of fact, there's another biblical reference I'll give you, and I use this a lot of times to open my presentations, is that as the story goes, of course, at baby Jesus' birth, there were more animals present than people. Mm-hmm. And what that says to me is in the eyes of the creative intelligence of this universe, animals are very important.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, totally. Yeah, beautiful. What do you think people can do from day to day to assist in healing the animals indirectly or this planet? I mean, if they're not plugged into this type of healing work in general, what do you think they can do? What's the first step?
Take personal responsibility for what you put in your shopping cart. Because right down to the Crayolas that we buy for our children, there's animal byproducts in those crayons. And so if you start shopping with consciousness and looking at the products that you're buying and understanding that if you're buying any product, any cleaning, anything that is tested by using animals, has animal byproducts in it, you are contributing to animal abuse on this planet. So we need to start taking responsibility and creating consumer awareness. Mm-hmm. Because, there are beeswax crayons.
Yeah, you don't need to use animals. That's for darn sure. Well, you look at all these things that they're doing, the slaughtering of the dolphins and everything else, and that's just horrific, some of the things that they do. And it doesn't seem like they're respecting the concept of how these animals contain consciousness.
One of my favorite human beings on the planet is Wayne Pacelle, mm-hmm. who is the president of the Humane Society of the United States of America. Never have met him, but we Facebooked each other. And he has a book out that is disturbing, by the way, to read. I had to choke tears. I cried mm-hmm. through most of the book. But it was so important that I thought, I have to keep going. I have to keep going. It's called The Bond. Oh my gosh, I just lost the rest of the name. The Bond. Mm-hmm. Something with animals and our need to defend them. Hmm. And he talks about the USDA. He talks about, all of the progress that has been made, but, cockfighting and the slaughtering of the baby seals, which has changed. And mm-hmm. wow, from his young manhood, he's really always been focused on being a steward of this planet and taking care of the animals. But when I read that book, it was shocking for me, some of the information that I learned about the government agencies that we think are there for our highest good, that they're not.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Big surprise. Big surprise there, huh, Solaris?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, it's interesting. I mean, there's so many alternatives for food when it comes down to it. We can synthesize just about anything. There really isn't any excuse to eat meat or animals anymore. I mean, honestly, there really isn't, in my opinion. And also, even with makeup or anything else, I mean, there's always an alternative, in which I don't understand why there's such a push for all this abusive things that they do. It's really heartbreaking when you think about it.
Well, and on the other hand, the Native Americans, I mean, they ate meat, they mm-hmm. hunted, but they honored the life. In fact, they believed that deer, for instance, sacrificed his life for their tribe to eat, or the buffalo or whatever. But they honored it. And let's also say this: animals do eat each other. So, I don't, I have a little bit of a. They do, but the only animal that actually plays with its food before he eats it, you know who it is?
Cats? No.
That's right. Yes.
That's right. All right.
Yeah. So for the most part, animals don't torture each other before they eat them.
They're not malicious.
Exactly. Except for the cat. They'll bat things around.
Just a harmless putty cat, right?
That's right. That's the cat.
Yeah.
Thing.
Kind of interesting like that. It is true. There's not a malicious bone in an animal's body, opposed to people who can be very vindictive and cruel.
Well, there's a real hierarchy out in the animal kingdom. And the thing with animals, they are resilient and they adapt. I mean, somebody said something to me a couple of weeks ago, and I said, you know what? I'm a member of the animal kingdom. I actually am very adaptable. So we will take over their environments, but they adapt. I don't agree with it. I think the bulldozers, I think it's horrible when a big piece of equipment comes in and just mows down everything that's alive for more houses. But again, see, that's participating because I just judged it.
Well, you can observe it without judging it.
That's right. But
that's what I do. I usually observe. But I make really good observations.
Yes.
But there's a lot happening here, and it makes me wonder if they're not terraforming the planet. And I've mentioned that before on my show. But literally, there's so many things that are almost like global sabotage when you look at it in observation. It just looks like they're truly trying to wipe out our natural resources and things, and it makes you wonder.
It makes you wonder about where we're going to be in the future. Things have to change. That's all there is to it. And you know what? I think they can change instantaneously. I don't know. Can we just shift it in our consciousness?
I believe.
Is it possible that there's just going to be all these other realities that are created in a moment, and we live the vibration that we are?
It's very interesting. Well, we are multidimensional beings, and everything's existing simultaneously as we speak. So, we could be living in a perfect universe right now as we're having a conversation here.
That's right.
But at the same time, you have to look, and once again, it's the sync up thing, I guess. I'm looking at the global maelstrom of what's happening here on the world and thinking to myself, what is it going to take in order for everybody to get that language simultaneously, if possible? I mean, to me, that's a nice dream, I guess.
But somebody has to hold the vision. We have to hold the vision.
Right. Yeah. And in order to do that, I was going to ask you about the planet itself. Now, do you delegate or dedicate time to actually do some sessions for the Earth?
Absolutely. Okay.
And do you actually bring on people and actually correlate times and places and things like that for this?
I used to. But, I have to say that I've become consumed by my life. Yes. So we used to actually, Paul, and I, when we started Partnership in Planetary Healing, we used to have a hotline where people would call in and we would have it set up. And, again, it's kind of a terrible thing, when we get so busy that our missions and our projects sometimes get lost in it. But I absolutely recognize that the Earth is a living, conscious being. The Earth is a being. Of course, and is conscious. And you know what? If all life ceased to exist on this planet, this Earth will survive. She will survive us. She has before.
Oh, yeah.
And she will again.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm surprised she hasn't exterminated everybody yet.
Wow. Yes. And maybe,
Very patient planet, if you ask me.
Very loving.
Truly. When you think about it. Well, sometimes, people don't realize they don't miss anything until it's gone, and.
Well, I had an experience one night where I really experienced, intellectually, we go, the Earth is our mother, and, but I had an experience one night where I knew it. I had that experience of knowing. It wasn't intellectual. It was on all levels of my being. Like, you are my mother. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's very sacred. Well, there's a lot of multiple languages that are happening across the board here, especially with the Earth. If people would tune into that frequency, they'd be able to understand it more.
Well, and if we need to love the Earth because she certainly loves us, and boy, she's a tolerant being.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I'm very concerned about the oceans. I don't know what your impression is about our oceans dying. What is your take on that?
I think everything is in the process of, transitioning.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking the life out of an awful lot here.
Mm-hmm.
And, all of the effects of everything that's happened in Japan and even the oil spill. I mean, we're still not really seeing the full impact of what happened there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I agree with that. Totally.
And it's all, and are people seeing that we are all really connected in that way? This happened in Japan.
Mm-hmm. I don't think they're paying attention. Yeah.
But we are having effects on our ocean, on our seashores in the United States,
mm-hmm.
on the West Coast and other areas from what occurred in Japan a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the oil spill, we're still, I don't know. They don't tell us everything. You know that. The theys.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The theys. They don't tell us everything. We are told what they want us to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, spoon-fed information. But,
so what do I think about it? Again, I think that I remember when that oil spill happened, for instance, that was the first time I put out a call to action for practitioners of reconnective healing to actually just go into the embodiment of the oceans and not direct. And so, most people go, oh, I just love birds. I just love this. I love that. I said, you know what? It's so big that there isn't one part of this that you want to pull out and direct energy to.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole. And so just go in and just be the frequencies, bring in the light. It's kind of a whole light fusion,
mm-hmm.
and heal it. And just issue out the loving presence within your heart. Because people lost their jobs, people lost their boats, the foods, on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
Animals lost their lives. It was such a huge, huge thing. How do you pick one thing of that? And that's, again, a principle of reconnective healing.
Mm-hmm.
It's about wholeness. So do I think that we can change that? I know we can.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? Enough people have to be putting their attention towards that goal and having that vision.
Right.
And ceaselessly,
mm-hmm.
ceaselessly,
turn the TVs off for a week.
Absolutely.
Focus on that. Can you imagine if the world stopped watching mainstream BS and just tuned out for a second and then tuned into something like this?
Well, yeah, because TV alone, the content will lower your vibration.
Right. Yeah, it's just going to stupefy.
And we're completely manipulated by it too. Mm-hmm. You need this pill. But I love these. I don't love these ads, but it blows me away when I hear a pharmaceutical ad and they tell you the benefits of it, and then it takes 3 or 4 times longer to say the other effects.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, really? And people are going to take that med. Anyway, we're completely manipulated by so much fear. And a lot of it is, of course, it's through the media. And they're not telling the truth. Thank God for radio programs like yours and others who are bringing information.
Mm-hmm.
Because disinformation is darkness. Information is light.
Oh, so well said. I totally agree. And I'm grateful for you, too. Like I said, it's been really kind of dark and weird. This whole week was kind of strange. And then I'm really glad that you came on the show tonight. I really appreciate you being here because you are a bright light. You're just so, your energetic is just beautiful.
Thank you, Solaris.
Yeah. And one of these days we'll actually really, really connect.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
There was a flood the last time you were in my area. So
there was.
Crazy. That's when we had that big old flood up here. Oh, gosh.
Just had ours in Phoenix. I'm from Phoenix, as you know.
Right.
People actually died in Phoenix, Arizona from a flood.
Wow.
Recently, people died. Drowned. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is crazy. What's happening? So
you have noticed a lot of different things, different weather patterns and everything else happening.
Amplified.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how much of that is atmospheric disturbance due to the collective?
Is it?
Well,
some of it's manipulated.
Well, I think there's a bit.
I don't know if it's all real. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's all, I was driving up to my healing center and there were these, storm alerts out, but I went, well, I need to get up there because it's on a mountainside. And if anything was going to happen, I just wanted to be there. So I saw this bolt of lightning ahead of me, quite a ways ahead of me. And I went, well, that's a strange looking bolt of lightning that just hit. And, every 10 seconds it hit again. And it looked exactly the same. Straight down in the same spot. You know what? That's not normal.
No, it's not. Well, Tesla worked with electricity and lightning.
Well, I think there's a lot of testing with weather manipulation going. When I have conversations like this with my family, they just think I'm a nut.
Well, that's too bad. I mean, I wish people would get up to speed about what's going on here.
what the capabilities really are.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's just it's really a lonely world when you think about it. When there's only a percentage of people that really know what's happening, and the rest are just oblivious.
And want to believe. It's like, are you comfortable with your head in the sand?
I wouldn't
Can
be.
you actually breathe down there? No.
Really? No kidding. Well, the thing is, ignorance is not bliss. And eventually, I think ignorance at this point in the continuum might destroy people. So it's better to pay attention and be aware, in my opinion, anyway.
I agree with you.
Yeah. I like to know what's going on. The funny thing is, I think that we know more about a lot of things than half the people in these departments these days. I think they're so compromised by their own intellect that's not even there anymore that we're actually picking up on more and decoding more. That's my take anyway.
If people would even look at it, there's a government site, right, called government ready.gov. Have you seen that?
I have.
It's been around for a long time, but it was maybe 4 years ago. I was watching the Science Channel, and all of a sudden there's this ad, and it's black and white, and everything's turning upside down, and they're flying around the living room, and the family runs out the door, and the man of the house grabs his bag, and it says, if your world suddenly were turned upside down, are you ready? And I went, what is this? And it says ready.gov. I went, okay. So I looked it up. I went, wow, there's like, what do you need? I mean, but here's the interesting thing. That was not being aired on like the NFL football station. It wasn't being aired on mainstream television. It was being aired on where intelligent people are watching. And I thought that was interesting. And, I heard the same ad on Coast to Coast. And I thought, well, that was really interesting. And so I started alerting my friends, about the site and the list. Because, some of it just made sense. I'm not saying the world's coming to an end. But, with the weather changes and, you just want to be prepared. You want to be prepared with water. You want to be prepared for food. Because you don't know. I mean, just a bad thunderstorm.
Right, situation awareness, if nothing else. Exactly. But and also be prepared to calibrate to other levels of consciousness, which equates to other dimensional spaces as well. And I think that's a huge thing.
Absolutely. And there is actually humanity is being recalibrated. And maybe that's what we're seeing. Maybe the shift, because it's not comfortable. It's just not comfortable. But we do know it's happening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it seems to me like the biggest gates of hell have been opened right now, in my opinion, and just observation. Yeah, well, totally.
Yeah. It's brutal.
It really is, man. And thank goodness that, I did the spiritual work ahead of time so I can observe it on a multidimensional level. But I can't imagine people being pulled into it on a very lower astral level, where they haven't done the spiritual work. I suspect that would be very rough. But
yeah, I had an experience one night where I was given some really good advice. And I was taken out of my home, and I ended up in this place. And I remember the conversation with the being, and I was told, and they used my name. This male entity said, Renee, we've noticed that you're having a tendency still to measure. You really need to watch that. Now, when I woke up back in my own bed the next morning, I had signs that this whole experience was real, because I had a sample had literally been taken out of my body, like a cookie cutter out of around my elbow. And I had it checked, and it didn't happen in this where I live. Okay. Anyway, it's a whole nother thing. But anyway, I thought about that. because when I moved my arm, it hurt. And I went, what is that? And there's this hole in there. And I looked in the mirror and went, that is really weird. But anyway, I remembered the conversation and I remembered some other things that happened. And I went, measuring. And it's kind of like judging, but it's different. And I thought about it. It changed my life. Mm-hmm. And this happened actually sometime between when I went to bed on Sunday night, September the 12th of 2000, and I believe it was 10. And when I got up, the next morning, I'm pretty sure I have to look at the calendar, but I'm pretty sure September the 13th of 2010. It could have been 11. Pretty sure it was 2010. Anyway, I thought about that and I went, okay, stop measuring. So it's a stronger word than judging, because again, it goes back to, it's way beyond judging a person or judging a situation. It's like when you are observing these things going on globally, you've got to stay in the middle. You have to be an observer, a neutral observer.
Right.
And and that's another thing. I think if we could train ours, and it did, it changed a lot in my world. And I'll never forget it.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good message, actually.
It was, and it still is. Yes.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's like the sacred witness, I like the neutral observer. I think that's a good term to use. Yeah, makes perfect sense. That way, you don't get caught into anything. You're just there,
and we're not fueling it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's hard to do. It takes a little bit more discipline. I think sometimes we get pulled in.
Well, we do. In fact, I noticed I went into a strange little cycle for a little while, and I was afraid of everything. It was so crazy. I mean, I became, I don't know why. Maybe I had to experience it, but my life started going to hell.
When was this?
Well, this year.
Oh, wow.
I know. And my focus, though, it wasn't good. And I knew it and I recognized and I went, wow, I really need to dig myself out of this, because the more I think like this, the worse it's getting. And so I know better.
Right. But, yeah. Course correction.
Exactly. Yeah. Precisely. Yeah, I'm done,
Well, you sound like things are working great now, so that's good. Mm-hmm. Get that pushed out or whatever it was.
Yes.
Well, sometimes I think maybe you're picking up on stuff that's not yours anyway. I don't know if it comes from the animals. Do you think you might be tuning into animals that are afraid of what's happening on the world?
I have this friend, Solaris, that he was at a wedding tonight because I wanted him to call in. And he is a very gifted intuitive. And I've asked him to communicate to the animal kingdom. Mm-hmm. So he does a lot of intuitive work with your pets, right? And I said, no, Robert, it's bigger than that. Solaris's audience is really, really, really evolved. This is not about, intuitive reading with pets. This is about what does the animal kingdom have to say about the condition of what humanity is doing here? What do the dolphins have to say? What do the whales? I'm not an animal communicator. I mean, I do get communications from animal kingdom, but they're giving me advice. They're giving me advice because I need it, So, but Robert can tap in. And I asked him one time, I said, could you go into the grocery store and just go talk to a package of meat? He goes, Renee, you're nuts. And I said, no. Why would it be any different? The vibration is there. You're just going to tune. He goes, I don't think I want to do that. But anyway.
That's interesting. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And so I'm working on them.
It's like going to a grave. Just kind of
exactly.
Yeah.
Let's see what they have to say as a collective.
Right. And of course that residual astral imprinting, of course, at these slaughterhouses is probably just horrific, Well,
one of my horses, Cochise, I had him up. One of my fears came up. Actually, I got afraid to get on my horse, which is crazy, right? Mm-hmm. So I ended up going to this, I took my horse to this guy up near me, and my horse went crazy when we were passing the barn. And he goes, oh, that's where I slaughter the cows. He probably smells the blood. I went, great. But you know what? Back to the meat thing. Here's the thing. These cattle are raised in a different way. I mean, they're not going through slaughterhouses. They're well fed. They're well taken care of. They are slaughtered, but I guess I'd have to say humanely. I don't know. I mean, but my horse did not like it.
Hmm.
He did not. He couldn't get away from that barn, that area outside of that barn fast enough.
Oh.
So I would imagine the cochise was picking up on that vibe.
Oh, I'm sure he was.
Because there's still fear. I mean, listen, they still know they're going to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, in fact, in that book, the bond, our kinship with animals, and our need to defend them, Wayne Pacelli. One of the stories he shared was when they had just closed down a slaughterhouse in Ohio. When they started closing down slaughterhouses. Mm-hmm. And these two horses were spared. They're the ones that were spared, and they ended up going to the sanctuary in Texas. But it's like, can you imagine standing there and watching, you're next? Okay, so here's a terrible picture. But you know how they put tags in cows' ears? Mm-hmm. And they have them in pens? And I thought, you know how we can get to people? Let's put a bunch of people out in the pen and tag their ears.
Oh, sure is coming.
It's terrible.
It's an alternate reality somewhere, Renee.
It is. Yes. But, does that communicate? Will that say anything to these people?
Right.
Like, hello, these cattle, they're beings too. Wow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tag some people and put them on the pen and see how that goes over. People are going to be mad at that, but
you're right.
It's a picture. Mm-hmm. It's a communication. I get it.
Empathy is huge, and I think that's part of what we've lost as a civilization is the compassion and the empathy for our fellow man and for other animals.
Right. We've become we have not, but a lot of people have become hard-hearted, and when you become hard-hearted and you don't even see the pain and suffering anymore in these other beings, it reflects back to you and where you are at your soul level.
Right. Yeah.
Lack of compassion and
so many centuries of programming too. There's so many different types of people out there and races that have been programmed into behaving that way with animals, and so once again it's breaking the cycle.
Well, it's a very bloody planet, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It truly is. Yeah, I used to think that oil was the blood of the earth, and boy, it's just amazing.
The planet's not bloody, but I mean.
Yeah, no, yeah, I understand what you mean, but yeah.
So let's try we only have a few minutes to turn this back into a positive note.
Oh, that's right. We can't leave it on a dark note now, can we?
No. No, there's hope. There's always hope. And it's up to us. And the animals are depending on us. The animals can't really make the changes. We have to make the changes. Humanity, we have to be humane. We have to have the compassion. We are the only ones. Our species is the species that has to make the difference. And, and I love one of the things that JFK has said. He said, one person can make a difference, but everybody and everyone should try. And so it's just, remember when Oprah Winfrey had that act of kindness thing? I mean, all we have to do is set an alarm, and check in with yourself, a few times a day and ask yourself, do I like where I am right now? Do I like what I'm thinking? Do I like where I'm going? Do I like how I'm behaving? Just check in with yourself. Really, the change is going to have to come from every person that can possibly live in this conscious way to take personal responsibility, because the change begins with each one of us. You can't be responsible for somebody else. I can't be responsible for somebody else, but we need to be responsible for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Well said, indeed. Yes, and if people want to get in touch with you, how would they do that, Renee?
Well, Renee, RENEE, at Renee Coltson, COLT, as in Tom, SON.com is one way.
Very good.
ReneeColtson.com.
Cool. And are you writing a book or no?
I have 3, but
okay.
I wish I could just finish one. I do, and I have... One of them I want to really get this one out. It's called Truth. And it's really about looking in the mirror and understanding that is not you. That the truth of who you are is your inner beingness. And so, in fact, the last page of that book is look beyond the image perceived here, which is a mirror, by the way, for within lies the truth.
Nice.
For within lies the truth of truth reflection and the perfection in all I am. In other words, everything on the surface, it's not real. It's an illusion.
Right.
So that book, I'd like to get that one out. I just need, you know what I need? A graphic designer. I need an artist.
Okay, everybody, listen up.
Yeah.
Renee needs a graphic artist.
I do. I need an artist.
So contact her. You're interested.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I need.
What a pleasure it has been to have you on tonight, Renee. I want to thank you again very much. It's always a blessing. You're a wonderful, wonderful woman.
You are too, Solaris. Thank you for sharing. I'm so glad you called.
Oh, likewise. I'm just very proud of you, too, the work that you're doing. I love it. And I know we'll get in touch with each other at some point in the continuum here. And, this is a good thing. Great. So anyways, I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight also. I hope you enjoyed and appreciated the information with Renee. And stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Becky coming up next to sell you on into the night from down under, as they always do. They have a very good show over there. And is there anything else you want to add? I think we've got maybe 3 minutes plus or minus here, Renee. So is there anything else you want to touch on briefly? I was going to ask you real quick, though, does color play into your healing system at all?
Well, not in a conscious way. We're not putting our attention on certain colors, but certainly it plays a role in it because we are interacting with a fuller spectrum of color and sound than was available before. So we had a limited spectrum of bandwidth before that we could access, and now we're accessing more because we're interacting with the fullness of the universe. Mm-hmm. So yes, color does come into play, but not in a way that, I don't have to think about, well, let me put blue here, let me do green there. Again, that's us directing.
Right.
You don't need to do that.
So I'm wondering about decor in houses. I wonder if people should just have a very bland looking home.
I don't think so. I think they should have whatever makes them happy.
Okay, so that's good. So that's not going to be. I really wonder sometimes about things. You know how we like our pretties, and all these nice little artsy things. But
well, I think clutter is not a great idea. I think people need to unclutter their lives, unclutter their homes, and boy, sign me up for that one.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, everybody. Well, thank you again, and Renee, it's been a pleasure. Everybody, have a great week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.